All right, and here we go. Welcome to Podcast Answers, the show where we help you create and start your podcast. If you have never, ever joined us before, we've been doing podcasting since 2007. And so we are going to be just talking a little bit about podcasting and helping you get your show started. So without further ado, we are going to be talking today about how to record your podcast. And yes, that includes mics and software and hardware and all sorts of things like that. So let's go there. So you want to start a podcast, you have an idea, and now it's time to actually get out there with your content and create a show, create something that people are going to listen to. So how do you do that? So you first need a mic. You can either use, if you're just starting out, probably the best thing is a USB mic to your computer, because that's real simple. You can just plug the mic right into your computer, open up a software like Audacity or Audition or GarageBand. Audacity and GarageBand are both free apps. Audacity is on either any platform, and GarageBand is with the Mac only. So if you have a Mac, definitely check out GarageBand. It's how I did the first several of my episodes. I'm now using Audition. Audition has some more features and some more plugins that you can use to make better, sweeter sound. But with that, though, it is a paid program, and so it does take some money to get going there. So if you're just starting out and you don't know what you want, if you want to keep doing this podcasting thing, I would definitely use something like Audacity or GarageBand. Both of those can do that. So you can open up and you can record right into either of those apps right there. You can just push record in that, use your USB mic, and record. Now, I know a lot of people, I would suggest against using your built-in laptop mic. Do not do that. That's going to sound like rubbish. It's going to be bad. So with that, though, what I would do is get something. You can start out, if you're just starting out, you can use a mic that's something simple and cheap, like the ATR 2100X, and that's both USB and XLR. That's an Audio-Technica ATR 2100X, and that's got both USB and XLR on it. So that's really nice, because if you're just starting out, you can go ahead and plug that puppy in and record right to your computer. But if you do graduate into something else, like something bigger, like a mixing board, like one of the ones we'll be talking about later, you can use that same app on that. But what one of the things that I would do is do something like that, because if it has XLR and USB, you're going to be good for the long future. So that way, if you upgrade something like to a Rodecaster Pro or whatever, you can still use your ATR 2100X because it has XLR. And XLR, if you're not aware of, is that round like mic cable that has the 3 pins in it. It doesn't plug directly into your computer. You'll need to use some sort of a hardware to get that into your computer. Now, I did mention that if you have a hardware device like the Rodecaster, I like the Rodecaster because, well, it's kind of an all-in-one thing. It's an all-in-one device. It's going to cost you about $700, but it does allow you to plug mics right into the back, up to 4 mics. And so if you are doing a podcast with somebody else, that's really nice, because you can have mics for them instead of just your own single mic. And the nice thing about that too is it also has it has a SD card reader in it that you can plug right in and record right onto it and be done. When you're done, you hit stop and it's done. You don't even need a computer, but you can plug it into a computer and do things like streaming or recording in your software program, like I was talking about, Audition or Audacity or GarageBand. But going back to the mics, you can get AT2020. That's a good mic too. It's XLR only. So I'm sorry. Back to the ATR 2100s, the USB and XLR ones. Those are $79. That'll run you about $79-ish. So pretty easy, pretty cheap. And the nice thing about that is it does have both XLR and USB on it. The AT2020s by Audio-Technica are good too. It's XLR only though, and it's going to cost you about $100, so it's more money and XLR only, but you do get, it's a better sounding mic than the ATR 2100s X's. Now, if you really want to spend some money, you can get the Shure MV7, and that's both XLR and USB, but that's going to run you about $250 United States US on that, because that's just a little bit more expensive of a mic, but again, that's going to do some really cool things. It has some nice processing on it that allows you to make your voice just a little bit sweeter if you're using the the USB. So those are a couple good mic options for you to begin with. Again, to recap, that's going to be the ATR 2100Xs, and that has both USB and XLR, or AT2020s, and those are XLR only, but it's going to sound a little bit better than the ATR 2100s. And then the Shure MV7, like Mike Victor 7, it has both XLR and USB on it. And the nice thing about that is it does sound really good. It's kind of compact, and it's, I would say, the little brother to the to the mic that you're used to seeing, the Shure the SM7B. The SM7B is kind of a broadcast standard. Lots of podcasters use that. It's going to be XLR only, but it's going to sound really, really sweet. So the Shure MV7 is like its little brother. It's kind of designed to be after the standard SM7B, but it is USB and XLR only. So yeah, so those are the mics that I would definitely recommend. And if you are going to use something like the Rodecaster Pro is great. I love it because, again, you can record right on it. It has the sound pads right on it, so you can put your theme music and things right on it and not have to worry about it having all sorts of different hardware. When I first started out, I had a separate recorder that just had I had a little mixing board, and then I had a recorder that went out of that. It recorded stuff. I had a computer that played music. I had all sorts of different things. If I wanted to bring in a caller, I had a whole separate device just for that. But the Rodecaster Pro 2 brings that all into one device. You can hook your phone Bluetooth to it and bring in callers. You can use apps like Skype and anything else, and bring in your co-hosts to it. So your co-host doesn't even need to be in the same room. That's a great addition, especially if you were going to be doing lots and lots of podcasting. If you're going to stick with this thing and keep going, you are going to want something like the Rodecaster, because it's a great hardware solution, for all-in-one hardware solution for recording your podcast. Now, some tips that I would say when you are going to be recording your podcast is speak into your microphone clearly and have headphones as you record, so you get a good idea of the volume level that you are coming through. I know it's a little bit weird at first to hear your own voice when you're recording, but the reason we do that is so that we know what it sounds like when we're recording. We know that our levels are going to be the same as our co-host levels, and our music levels are good, instead of having it all separately. So listen to yourself. Speak clearly in your microphone. Use a pop filter also on your microphone, or a wind screen for your mic. You don't want to hear the popping of the P's when you say things like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So hopefully that didn't blow your ears out. But I'm using a windscreen, and so that should help with those. They're called plosives. So use a pop filter or a windscreen when you're recording your episode. If you are recording with a co-host, make sure your levels are really close to one another and that they're not louder. This goes back to listening to yourself and listening as you record, because you don't want to have people have to turn you up really loud when you're talking and then blow their eardrums out when your co-host speaks. You want to make sure that your levels are really close in line with each other. Again, that way you can keep everything sounding good. It's great. So there's a couple different mindsets when it comes to recording. You can either record live to drive like I do, or edit later. And the reason I like doing live to drive, so in other words, what I'm saying is I press record, I talk everything, I play my music all at once. If I mess up, I just mess up. No big deal. If I really mess up, I can edit later. but I don't ever plan on editing. I kind of go with the mindset of doing it like I'm doing a radio talk show where I'm going to talk and it's going to go out to whoever's listening. And so I don't pretend like I'm just myself recording. For me, when I do that and I know that I can edit later, I mess up lots and lots and lots. So what I do is I record live to drive. I hit start, I record. When I'm done, I hit end. And then what I do is I go in and I trim the ends up just a little bit. I maybe run a filter in my audio editing software that makes my sound just a little bit better. And then I save it. And but if you are planning on editing, one of the great things that you can do is if you do mess up, you can always clap and create like a spike for easy editing later. So that way you know when you mess up, or you can just stop and wait 5 seconds and then start again. And the reason for doing either one of those things where you stop and then start again or clap is because when you're looking in your audio editor, it's really easy to see the spike above every other sound level or the pause and know that's where you need to actually edit out. Instead of having to listen to your whole episode and figuring out what to take out later, you can just look real quickly, see that those need to be fixed, fix it, and go on. One thing that I would caution against when you're recording your episode is I would caution against taking out all of your ums and your ahs and your filler words. And the reason I say that is because once you chop that up, it's going to sound really unnatural if you take all the pauses out, all the ums and the ahs. The best way to get rid of filler words is to listen to your podcast episode when it's done. They will bother you. They will bother you when you say ums and ahs. And then what I've heard is the best way to do this is to stick a sticky note on your monitor that says a sticky note on your monitor that says ah, or whatever else your filler word is. That way you see it and you're training your brain to not say those things. So for me, I listen back to all of my episodes after they're published. I listen and I go, oh man, I said like quite a bit in that episode. And so I think about that next time I'm recording my episode. And so I don't say like quite as much. Now, when you are done recording your episode, podcast episodes are delivered as MP3 file format. So you can save it an audio file as 100 different things, but what it needs to have is it needs to have an MP3 format. So you save it, and you then what you do is use a tag editor, an MP3 tag editor. And for me, I use Podcast Chapters. That's a Mac app, and that adds my chapters as well as the podcast tags. And by tags, I mean like your cover art for your show, the title, the episode name, the description, any other pertinent information for your podcast. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that. Most modern podcast apps will play whatever is listed in your RSS feed. I mean, show whatever is in your RSS feed for the title and description. But some things like car players and older cars and things like that don't necessarily play or show what's in the RSS feed. And so you're going to need to save your MP3 and tag it with an MP3 tag editor. There's a couple different ones for Windows, but like I said, I like Podcast Chapters for Mac. And then what you can do is upload your podcast to your host. So next week, I'll talk a little bit more about what to look for in a podcast host and different podcast host options that are out there, because there are definitely quite a bit of podcast hosts, and I don't have a specific one that I recommend. I've used several different ones, and I like different things about different ones. So next week, I will talk a little bit about how to choose a podcast host for your podcast. But you upload it to your podcast host, and then you go ahead and put all your information on the website for the podcast, show description, title, and cover art if you have any. And that will allow you to go ahead and get that podcast out to the world. Now, if this sounds like a lot of work to you and you don't understand what I was talking about, you don't know what an XLR mic is, you don't know what exactly a pop filter is, you don't know how to tag your MP3s, and you don't want to learn, I'm here for you too. I do one-on-one consulting and work for podcasters, and so I edit, I create shows, I help record, I help plan your episodes, plan your shows. So if you need any of that help and you want to get started podcasting, make sure to go to podcastanswers.com/contact, and we can do a one-on-one consult with you and get you going with your podcast. Also, if you enjoyed this episode and you want to support this show a little bit, make sure that you go to podcastanswers.com/buymeacoffee. That will allow you to support us either with a one-time donation or a recurring monthly donation. And for those people that do that, I get episodes out early. You also get some behind-the-scenes stuff, as well as just overall helping us get money so that we can buy more services and try out things and help you know how to podcast better. So with that, guys, I look forward to seeing you next week and hope that you have a great week.